Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, Simon thinkers. This is LL3's Rude Podcast. My name is Curry Transmitting from beautiful swampy Mingley, South Florida, and today's date is Thursday, September 27th, 2018. So let us begin. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Just kicking back a little bit, enjoying some relaxation till later on tonight. I'm at Stash 207 Southwest 2nd Avenue in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, adjacent with Revolution Live in America's backyard. Yeah, so I was going to try to do a show last night, but things just happened. I decided not to do it, so I decided just to do a little catch up. It won't be that long for this episode. Just a few things. Mainly politically speaking, which most of my shows are about. So let's just start it off right. First, I was reading this from Paul Craig Roberts' site, paulcraigroberts.org. Came out yesterday, and it's entitled "Chuck Baldwin Sums It Up. Trump Blew It." Was what Mr. Roberts had to say. As further evidence for Chuck Baldwin's views, I add Trump's UN speech yesterday. There was Trump patting Washington on the back for its good deeds and humanitarian and democratic concerns for other countries, which apparently includes Washington's destruction in whole or part of 8 countries in the last 20 years, leaving ruin in place of once well-organized and well-functioning countries. What really stood out was Trump's commiseration with the Iranian and Venezuelan peoples as he piled on more sanctions. We call that an act of war, right? Washington's arrogance is outstanding. Here was Trump telling the world that Washington has decided the best government for Iran and Venezuela and intends to use force to put Washington's choice of government in office. Can we say God bless imperialism? Washington has been trying to overthrow Iran ever since the Iranian Revolution in 1978 and 79, when the Iranian people overthrew the ruling American vassal and established a government responsible to them instead of to Washington. Washington has been trying to overthrow Hugo Chavez's Bolivarian revolution since 1999, when Chavez took control of Venezuela's economy away from the foreign interests that had dominated the country. Washington's response to democracy has been to do everything in its powers to wreck the Venezuelan economy and to threaten military invasion in order to recover control over Venezuelan assets. The lies that Trump told yesterday about Iran and Venezuela are like the lies that Washington told about Siberia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Libya, Yemen, Pakistan, and Syria. Lies that were used to justify military actions have destroyed the lives and prospects of millions of peoples. Trump, like his predecessor, sees these crimes against humanity as good deeds because they advance Washington's and Israeli interests. All these crimes that have their origin in 9/11. 9/11 Truth Movement is focused on disproving the official conspiracy theory without identifying the real culprits. Chuck Baldwin brings to our attention Christopher Boland's book, which identifies those who are actually responsible for 9/11. This came out in September 20th, so about a week ago. He Blew It by Chuck Baldwin. As the attacks on 9/11 have been brought to the forefront of my attention via the 17th anniversary of those attacks, it behooves me not to leave the subject without further observations. By now, any thinking person has plenty of time to devote at least some study to what happened on September 11, 2001, and it's relatively safe to say that truly objective and reasoned people have concluded, to one degree or another, that what we've been told about the 9/11 attacks is mostly, if not completely, a bunch of hot air. In fact, as time go by, more people could come to doubt, if not totally disbelief, the official story about 9/11, and that's putting it mildly. I will even go so far as to say that only people today who actually believe the official story about 9/11 are the ones who have done absolutely no objective, independent study into the matter. And the official narrative of 9/11 is false logic, and reason demand that those who were complicit in the attacks were people who were powerful enough and well-positioned enough to be able to pull off the attacks without being discovered, while at the same time successfully implicating innocent people as being the perpetrators. Obviously, such a plan involves, at least to a degree, government resources. At this point, I think it is helpful to remind everyone that while the government might be thoroughly inept about many, if not most, of its activities, no organization in the world spends more money and takes the combined efforts to more people to accomplish less good than America's federal government. One thing that government is able to do exceptionally well is kill people and destroy property. No organization in the world is more proficient at killing people and destroying things than government. They are the world's foremost killing machines. R.J. Rummel's exhaustive research in Death by Government chronicles the fact that over 262 million people were murdered by despotic governments around the world during the 20th century alone. The government has killed more people than all the gangsters, mass shooters, and terrorists of the world combined by a millionfold. Great book. Buy it. Not just check it out at the library. Buy it. You won't be disappointed. To think that the attacks on 9/11 would be outside the realm of possibility for government culpability is the height of naivety. To any rational thinking person, the only entity that could pull off such an operation as brilliantly and seamlessly as the attacks on 9/11 had to be government, or at least elements within government. Furthermore, the possibility that there was a collaboration of more than one government involved in the 9/11 attacks must also be considered highly likely. And that's why, my friends, if you hear some of my past episodes, I said 9/11 was a New World Order agenda, because I am convinced it's more than one group of rogue elements in government. Multi-area, whether it's the United States, Great Britain, Saudi Arabia, Israel, just to name four. That's at the least. And I say that respectfully. For all intents and purposes, there are only 3 governments in the world today that have military and intelligence sophistication to pull off an elaborate attack such as 9/11. Inside the continental United States, the U.S., of course, Great Britain, and Israel. Truly, anyone who thinks that 19 of mostly uneducated and benighted Arabs in the Middle East could successfully abscond 3 Boeing 757 aircraft, circumvent and outsmart the most sophisticated and protected airspace in the world, and expertly navigate those jet aircraft into precision attack against ground targets that even many of the most highly skilled pilots in the world could not perform, all by taking a crash course in flying Cessna propeller airplanes, no less, is well gullible beyond all remedy. 9/11 attacks were mass killing crimes. The perpetrators were master criminals, and they are still at large, which brings me to Donald Trump. Donald Trump was elected president on the promise that he would drain the swamp and dismantle the deep state. And many conservative Christians thoroughly believe that Trump is actually doing what he promised. But is he? I think not. Donald Trump had one chance to prove that he was serious about draining the swamp and dismantling the deep state. One chance. That one chance was his first 2 years in office, and he blew it. Trump appointed more deep state CFR members and Bilderbergers, including Neil Gorish, James Mattis, John Bolton, et al., to his administration than Barack Obama, and don't be taken in by all of the political bickering surrounding Trump's Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. The conservatives' defense of Kavanaugh is as relevant as the liberals' accusation against Kavanaugh. The fact is, Kavanaugh is a deep state toady who is up to his neck in covering the government's murder of former Clinton Deputy White House counsel Vince Foster. Speaking of which, Trump has done nothing to bring the deep state witch Hillary Clinton to justice like he said he would, even. In addition, and more relevant to the 9/11 discussion, Trump brought deep state warlock Rudy Giuliani to the White House. As mayor of New York City, Giuliani, more than any other single individual, provided cover for the real attackers of 9/11 by overseeing the massive effort of destroying the evidence on the horrific crime scene. Giuliani is the quintessential deep state operative. The criminals who masterminded and carried out the 9/11 attacks could not have succeeded without the help of Rudy Giuliani. He was a major player in 9/11, yet Trump brings his conscienceless deep state puppet into the White House and give him one of the most trusted positions in his government. Very interesting, right? And I remember this. I went to a protest in Coral Gables, Florida. December 9th, on a Sunday, he was speaking at Coral Gables. Holiday Inn. And the greatest thing about it, one guy started yelling, what do you want a, he is not America's mayor. His idol was Benito Mussolini. So looks like calling Mini B for Benito, right? When he came out, when someone yelled, a rat came out of his hole. He hated us for it, and I felt good. I'll continue on here. Had Trump been serious about draining the swamp and dismantling the deep state, he would have begun immediately after being inaugurated, exposing major deep state players from both parties, including the Clintons, Bushes, Dick Cheney, Giuliani, Chertoff, etc. And from the alphabet agencies that have millions of skeletons literally in their bloody closets. But instead of exposing them, Trump continued for them or even hire them. But instead of hiring deep state toadies like Giuliani, Trump should have created an independent commission to thoroughly investigate 9/11. If he had been serious about dismantling the deep state, that is exactly what he would have done. But he didn't, and he won't. He won't because Trump is determined to keep the crimes of the deep state covered up. Beyond that, the epicenter of the global deep state is Benjamin Netanyahu's Zionist state of Israel. And what does Trump do here? He panders to Israel, increases financial and military support for Israel, denies humanitarian funding for Israeli persecuted Palestinians, refuses to recognize Israel's illegal occupation of Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank, joins Israel in attacking Syria, amasses U.S. forces to assist Israel's myriad wars in the Middle East, etc. Ad infinitum. Had Trump been seriously dismantling the deep state, he would have exposed Israel's bloodlust in the Middle East, its control over the U.S. Congress and the major news media, and its manifold treacheries against the United States. And that includes exposing Israel's cold-blooded attack on the USS Liberty 50 years ago and Israel's complicity in the 9/11 attacks. Had Trump been serious about draining the swamp and dismantling the deep state, he would have also begun dismantling America's Bergoni police state. And furthermore, he would have kept his promise to get our troops out of the deep state's perpetual war on terror in the Middle East. Trump did none of the above. Instead, he expanded and escalated all of the above. From this point on, it doesn't matter to Tinker's damn what Trump does or doesn't do, as he has proven that he either didn't mean a word he said while campaigning or didn't have the man stuff to actually follow through what he promised. From now on, Trump will be simply dancing the famous Potomac two-step all over Washington, D.C. when he is not playing golf. That is, yes, you know that Trump has spent 25% of his time in office so far on the various golf courses he owns. That's a fact. Yeah, chasing birdies is a great way to fight the deep state. Folks, let this sink in. The deep state has nothing to do with partisan politics. It has nothing to do with the entire left-right political wrangling, name-calling, posturing, etc. that consumes the mainstream media. All of that is nothing but public theater to distract the American people from what is really going on or not going on. Donald Trump had one chance to prove he was serious about draining the swamp and dismantling the deep state. His first 2 years in office. And the 17th anniversary of the 9/11 attack serves as just another reminder that he blew it. P.S. I again urge readers to buy Christopher Baldwin's masterful expose on who and what was behind the 9/11 attacks and America's ongoing war on terror. The book is entitled The War on Terror, The Plot to Rule the Middle East. We have been bamboozled, folks. Everything we've been told about 9/11 and the war on terror is a big fat lie. And no one has done more investigative research exposing these lies than Christopher Baldwin. If enough of the American people could come to grips with the truth about 9/11, the war on terror, it would change the course of history, save thousands and even millions of lives, and yes, save our republic. As it is, the deception of 9/11 and the war on terror envelopes both political parties in Washington, D.C., including Donald Trump, and even America's pastors and churches. Baldwin's book shatters the myths and destroys the lies. It names track times and identifies the criminal cabal that masterminded the 9/11 attacks that took America into an everlasting, never-ending perpetual war on terror that has killed millions and millions and will kill millions more unless the American people wake up and put a stop to this global catastrophe. You can go, the link here for Amazon.com, and it's originally from ChuckBaldwinLive.com. And I will say this. In 2000, if I'm correct, yeah, I do remember, 2008, I did vote for Charles Baldwin to be president. I have done it. Principle over party. And I always give this man admiration. Yes, he's a Christian by faith. I'm not going to get offended by that. Some people do get annoyed. I don't. But at least he has the courage to let people know that the 501c3 on churches is illegal. He has a church that's not 501c3 documented because it violates the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And I will give him homage for what he does, what he wrote, because the man has a lot of merit. And I take the time to look at a lot of things as well. Yes, I've been a 9/11 truther unofficially since September 14, 2001. I have no shame of it. Wish I was wrong, but in a period of time, you realize, like, wow, you see right through it and don't even think about it. So I recommend. I heard some of his. I've seen some of his videos on YouTube. Christopher Baldwin. He's very good. He pissed off people, which is good. That's what folks I like. Push that envelope. Let's see how far it goes. We need to know the truth about September 11th. So I recommend everyone start reading his books too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to knock David Icke, anyone like that. Anyone like him or Alex Jones. I know they have they have some issues, but they have some great merits too. But go further. Even someone like David Icke will say go further. Okay, that's what the whole thing with the truth movement is about. Fighting a new world order. Network with each other. Share this information, and let people make their own decisions. And that's why I'll tell everyone: say yes to freedom, no to tyranny, and death to the new world order. I'll say this: they are not going to prevail. They think they will. On the long term, they'll be null and void. Think for yourselves, friends. Don't get caught up in the hoopla. Even the ones on my pen pals on Facebook. All this one-dimensional crap I see. Go further than this. You drive them a lot more crazier. The more you know, the more you implement it, the less you fear. Say enough of that on this area. And like I love when he said about Kavanaugh is a deep state toady. Alright, speaking of Kavanaugh, this is what Bob Livingston has to say on personalliberty.com. And as it reads here, what's behind the destruction of Brett Kavanaugh? Christy Blasey Ford, a woman who accused Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault more than 3 decades ago, will get her day in court today. That is, if she shows up for the Senate Judiciary hearing. We hear from the progressive left and propaganda media that Ford's accusations are credible, but she doesn't want to prove them. The burden of proof, we're told, is on the accused. Welcome to the new Star Chamber. A Star Chamber is a system of entrapment that provides no escape. The accused is made to testify against him and then punished upon confession of guilt. The credibility accused is nonsense. It replaces the rule with the rule of smear. Anyone can credibly accuse anyone of anything at any time. America's jurisprudence hinges on the presumption of innocence. The Fifth Amendment guarantees the right of due process. Sixth, the right to be informed of the nature and the cause of the accusations and to confront your accusers. Ford's legal team, a group of Democratic activists and political hacks, have been at times both crawfishing and making impossible demands on the Senate Judiciary Committee before agreeing to allow her to testify. Even though Ford and Democratic politicians on both on and of the Judiciary Committee have stated she needs to be heard. Her legal team has not turned over to the committee documents that purported to bolster her claims late yesterday. The leftist politicians pushing Ford headlong into setting herself up for perjury thought Ford's unsubstantiated claims, supposed witnesses named by Ford, all refute her claims on denying having the knowledge of them. Against Kavanaugh will cause him to back down and the President Donald Trump to withdraw the nomination. When that didn't happen, they began fighting a delay action in order to drag other accusers into the fray. A second one arrived, but her claims were more specious. Even the New York Times wouldn't publish them. Again, none of the witnesses she herself named affirmed her story. Then a third one associated with the creepy porn lawyer, possible Democratic presidential candidate and currently appearing on every propaganda cable show, Michael Avenatti, appeared with claims even more outlandish than the first two. As stated above, the term credibly accused is specious nonsense. Kavanaugh cannot possibly credibly defend herself because the charges against him from the first two accusers are so flimsy that not even a month or year has been established for the events, much less a day and time. The accusers claim that Kavanaugh and friends were running a high school drug and rape gang, and she has willingly attended more than 10 of them as a 19-year-old woman, is so preposterous that is almost laughable. This theater would be comical if not for the stakes involved. The leftists claim to be champion of women and that defending women from the predatory patriarchy is what fight against Kavanaugh is about. That is sophistry. If leftist politicians pushing this narrative against Kavanaugh cared about women, they direct some of their outrage at Keith Ellison, Senator Robert Martinez, Bill Clinton, and dozens of other Congress weasels that have used the federal treasury to pay off women they sexually harassed. This fight is about abortion and the ability to legislate from the bench through an activist judiciary. Never mind if they have to destroy 3 women, Kavanaugh, his wife, and children to win it. The leftist politicians and the propaganda media enablers worship in the cult of abortion. They're willing to destroy the rule of law, common decency, as many people as necessary to defend their right to murder babies in the womb. When you're so evil that preserving the murder of the most innocent is your primary goal, other souls destroyed along the way are acceptable collateral damage. Interesting viewpoint on there. So what Mr. Livingston is saying is a one-dimensional agenda. That's it. And I can say this, and Chris Hall can agree, that he's a status quo. He's not even a constitutional judge or nominee. Status quo. If you're listening to his rhetoric on his so-called interviews, throwing questions at him, he talks about mainly opinions. Somewhat constitutional, but he's just about, I can hear the opinions. That's irrelevant. So, to me, this is more than a dog and pony show. Alright, friends? You have to really look at that. You gotta see right through the facade. And I have. And a lot of folks should, how come they're not really a lot of people should really focus on his Fourth Amendment stance. Okay? There's plenty of information on that. Just look it up. Brett Kavanaugh is anti-Fourth Amendment. You'd be surprised. How come they're not talking about this in the lamestream garbage media? Because they're pathetic. They're bought and paid for. They pull down their pants to get ratings. What they don't really have. Alright, I'm going to do one more segment. And I'll be right back. Alright, friends, going to do one more here. From Bob Livingston once again. BobLivingston.com/alerts. Okay, so you can check it out. Hit my foot. I'm going to have all my footnotes on my Spreaker page. And it says here, Are Republican politicians on our side? If Republican politicians are our friends, who needs enemies? There is a common theme in discussions with conservative friends who believe that Republican politicians, particularly those resigning for very long in the district of criminals, are cowards or become cowards who are afraid to stand up for conservative causes. It is also a message regularly delivered by the Republican-loving scribes and talking heads who claim to be conservatives. As an example of this trope appeared this week on the website American Greatness, author Brandon J. Reichert writes, There are times I forget the Republican Party won the 2016 election. The real reason is simple, because of most of the establishment GOP continues to lovable loser act. The Republicans appear to be appealing to some invisible referee who will trade into the great debate between those on the American right and those on the satanic left and adjudicate the arguments fairly. If elected, Republicans stood together the way the Democrats somehow managed. There is no policy that the GOP could not push through. Yet the Republicans struggle because their leadership is weak and malleable. The Republican Party has well earned the appellations from conservative voters, the lovable loser party, the stupid party, the coward party, or weak. All terms I've heard or seen used by Republican voters. Based of its abandonment of moral and genuine conservative principles as well, it is inability to lead in Congress, not that the Democrats are any better. Mind you, because their claims to morality and principle are even more ludicrous. The abysmal Republican failures in Congress, most notably their ability to repeal Obamacare, unwillingness to reduce government size, and spending and fumbling over the confirmation of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court seem to give way to the premise. But there is a page right out of the Republican Party Politics 101, which promised conservatism to its followers but delivers unmitigated collectivism. Republican politicians, for example, profess pro-Christian, anti-big government ideas, but joins the Democrats in face-destroying socialist legislation to expand the welfare state. Republicans are not stupid, fickle, or cowardly. They are hypocrites. They are not more effective, much less more trustworthy than the Democrats in preserving your liberty. Republicans have also claimed to have a corner on genuine conservatism as much as Democrats claim to have the corner on genuine liberalism. Both claims are untrue, but are perceived as true thanks to mass deception. Today's conservatism and liberalism are but twin pincers of the same dynamic, ever-changing collectivist dialect. I want to limit my examination to the conservative side of the problem because today's pseudo-conservatives are particularly adept at leading astray large numbers of middle-class Americans, especially Christians, patriots, and other good folks. Also, if not for the consequent acquiescence of Republican conservatives to the collectivist agenda, America would have retained its limited constitutional republic even in this sophisticated day and age. Now that in the federal government dominated by a Republican majority, the federal Leviathan grows in power, coupled together with New World Order. Note, too, that Republican judges and juries continue to rule for the state. codifying into law the evil practices on the progressive left, such as socialized health care, sodomite marriages, and the right to murder the soon-to-be-born. The Republican Party was born of corporatism and nurtured on bloodshed, and that continues to this day. As a historian Bruce Catton wrote in Civil War in 1860, Abraham Lincoln wanted to be the nominee of the Republican Party, a party that consisted in amalgam of former members of the defunct Whig Party, free soilers, those who believe all new territories should be slave-free, business leaders who wanted a central government that would protect industry, and ordinary folk who wanted a Homestead Act that would provide free farms in the West. The Republican platform, however, did represent a threat to Southern interests. It embodied the political and economic program of the North, upward revision of the tariff and free farms in the West, railroad subsidies, and all the rest. In other words, mercantilism. In early 1860s, the Republican Party's flurry of new laws, regulations, and bureaucracies created by Lincoln and the Republicans foreshadowed Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal for volume, scope, and questionable constitutionality of his legislation. Ain't that nice? The term New Deal was only co-opted by Roosevelt. It was first coined to describe Lincoln and the Republican agenda by a Raleigh, North Carolina newspaper in 1865. Lincoln's massive expansion of the federal government into the economy led Daniel Elazar to claim one could easily call Lincoln's presidency the New Deal of the 1860s. Republicans established a much larger, more powerful, and more destructive federal government in the 1860s. Mises.org explains. Already a fascist party, as evidenced by its long history of corporatism and embraces of George W. Bush's compassionate conservatism, bailouts, big government, and perpetual wars. The Republican politicians have slowly and almost imperceptibly abandoned any pretense to adhere to conservative first principles, while posting the notion that was once true conservatism is now extremism. True conservatism rejects statism, embrace small government, and abhor confiscatory taxes. Conservatives believe in strong militaries for the nation's defense, not military aventurism. Conservatives defend innocent life. Conservatives advocate liberty and personal responsibility. The Republican Party is ruled by sinos, conservatives in name, conservatives in name only, pseudo-conservatives who blow to the will of their corporate masters while playing the fools. Wow, I cannot disagree with him on this. More things change and more stay the same, my friend. As many of you have recalled, I did a show on the United States of America as a corporation. We are considered a federal corporation under Title 28 U.S. Code, Section 3002, subsection 15. You can look it up. It'd be great. That's what I'm here for, here to teach. Share information with you folks. And remember, tell me how great Abraham Lincoln was. I just start laughing. Like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Another good book, check out The Real Lincoln by Thomas J. DeLorenzo. Has a lot of merit. You can probably go online. Archive.org will be a good site to go. And you can see the free download. You'll be pretty surprised if you don't really know what Abraham Lincoln's about. I had a good friend of mine who was a stagehand. I lent him my book. He goes, brother, I had to read it twice. That's how much he got into it. And I gotta say, it was a real powerful book. So, and if you go to the Lincoln Memorial, on his bench, you see like the shape of the handles of the facades, or fasces. Of course, they dominance and control by ancient Rome, right? Precisely. So this is why, since the 14th, especially since the 14th Amendment, which, if I'm correct, Andrew Johnson was against it. We're all in the same corporate plantation. Doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from. That's the bigger picture. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or when somebody something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. I'll be posting all my social media sites and email contacts on my Spreaker page, alright? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may guardian spirits be with you.